Welcome to the Land Down Under Hangout. Tonight's pick is Tress of the Emerald Sea, which is my pick. So I'm going to give a little bit of a background about this one. I did break the cardinal rule of picking something that I really love to get everyone to read. So, you know, that's probably going to come and bite me in the butt, but I'm prepared for that. So the background for this is it was one of Brandon Sanderson's secret project books. He did an announcement. I can't remember exactly when it was.
2 years ago?
Early 2021, I'm thinking, but I could be wrong. Where basically he put out this YouTube video. He's like, I've been lying to you all. And there's going to be this big announcement. Everybody thought he was going to say, look, I have, you know, I'm going to have to push back my publication of my next book because I haven't written it or whatever. And he just basically was like, I wrote 4 books in secret. Because he was during COVID time, he wasn't doing all his like promo tours and stuff, and he had heaps more time on his hands. And he was like, I just wrote 4 extra books, and here they are.
And the man's ridiculous.
Kickstarter, it was the most successful Kickstarter of all time. I backed the Kickstarter as a digital one because the physical copies were insanely expensive, especially shipping here to Australia. But I loved Tress so much that I actually went back and bought the physical copy of Tress from the Kickstarter because it was my favorite of the 4. So I have the fancy copy which came with the Kickstarter, which is all color pictures and beautiful. So I might show and tell that a bit later.
Versus the very boring Australian copy.
I still quite like that cover, but yeah, these ones.
It goes with the other parts of his cosmetic, like it follows with those, but it isn't. Yeah.
So the end papers have cups, and the end papers at the end have got different, very slightly different. Oh God, my background thing. Hoyt is stuffing things for me. Okay, I'll have to turn that off. But yeah, so I'll show some pages as we talk about stuff later. I wanted to start by asking everybody how much other Cosmere stuff you've read. So this is a Cosmere novel. It means it's set in Brandon's like extended universe. So he has different series of books, but they're all interconnected, generally in ways where it's like an Easter egg. It's like you don't have to have read them all, but if you have, you pick up little details. So I'm kind of curious to know what other Cosmere stuff other people have read. So I don't know. Anyone want to jump in? Anybody not read any other Cosmere stuff?
I've read Mistborn only, and only the original ones in total. I've tried a few other things, but mostly I've just read the original trilogy of Mistborn.
I've read absolutely none.
Same. I've read Mistborn. I've read the first and part of the second one.
Way of Kings.
Where they go with which one?
The Way of Kings, the Stormlight.
Yes, those ones. So I read the first one and then read half of the second. And I don't know, does Skyward and those are those? No, I thought they were in a separate universe. I was pretty sure. But yeah, so that's
general rule of thumb is if they ever mention Earth, it's not a Cosmere book because Earth doesn't.
Right.
Cosmere.
Well, I don't remember if they did or not.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sounds like I'm probably the next most read person then because
I've made him read.
Yeah. All of Mistborn, none of Stormlight yet.
You haven't finished all
I've
of
done Elantris. No, I know that. Whatever. This one, there's another secret project one that's a Cosmere one that I haven't read yet and I can't read for a while.
You have to read Stormlight before you read that one. And
a bunch of short story type stuff. So. And I have Kirsten. So
yeah, I never shut up about it. So. Is everybody else just not read anything?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So
cool. Interesting.
I thought I had read Mistborn because I thought Mistborn was a trilogy, but I'm suspecting from the way you're talking about it.
It's the 2 eras of, well, there's 2 eras at the moment. So Mistborn Era 1 is a trilogy. Mistborn Era 2 is 4 books. He's also planned 2 more eras of Mistborn as well. Like
it's basically before and after the Lord Ruler and before was a Hero of Ages. So once you get to that, like hero actually being the Hero of Ages. So the last book of and I haven't read, well, you know, like it's going to happen. It's in the title. We just don't know who. I haven't said who. I haven't read any of the second lot either, but I loved the way that Sanderson said it's about how technology changes when, you know, you move from one type of governing system to another, and I thought that was really cool. So I do want to read some of the world.
Fair enough.
What was
In that case, I read Mistborn Era 1 and Way of Kings.
Have you read all
Tress.
of the Way of Kings books?
The Way of Kings book 1.
books?
Oh,
Book
one,
1 of
same
the
as me.
Stormlight Archives.
So
Yeah, I tried to read the second one. I just didn't make it very far.
I might preface this with mild Cosmere lore spoilers, but no plot spoilers for Cosmere books. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, because I might reference a couple of things, but I won't reference any major plot points or anything like
Yeah,
that.
I have questions as well. So I will be asking you about things, Kirsten, because you are a resident Cosmere expert, and there's things that I was like, is it this? Is it that? Should I pick that up? So I will be asking you reference questions.
I'm kind of hoping for those kind of things. Okay, so should we do just general thoughts? Chig, we might start with you if you're going to have to leave soon. So
Yeah, so it was a really interesting, it took me halfway through till I realized that I was basically reading Stardust again. And then all the way through till I realized that this was deliberate. And that was the voice the author was going for. I have read a few things by Brandon Sanderson. This one made me scream the least at his depiction of relationships. It nearly came across. I mean, it's one thing that really bugs me about his writing is the way he depicts relationships. In this particular case, I nearly thought that the relationship was rather was at least not openly destructive. So hey, let's go for that. But I really loved the world building with the spores. I thought that was remarkably well done. Like the level of detail and stuff that had gone into it, and even into the cultural implications of it. And then to only, I mean, it was a major part of the story, but it wasn't the main driving plot force. Like they just exist, and it was just the background. So I thought that was really well done. Overall, I enjoyed it. I don't know if I'll go back and reread it, but if only for the world building, I really thought I really loved that. Yeah.
I should mention there's a great video, if you get time to look at it later, that Brandon made with Mark Rober about the, what's it called? The thing where you bubble air through sand and it makes it go like liquid. Which is what he kind of was inspired by to make this. Like he said originally he wanted to make a world where the sea was not actually made of water. And originally he was thinking about it being something else. I can't remember what he wanted it to be originally, but like, yeah, this kind of, this phenomenon is a real thing. So if you ever go and watch that video, it's really fun. I think Mark Rober's done a couple of videos about it. He made the one where he did this big spa and he had all his kids swimming in the sand and stuff. It was really cool. I think that's the one that when Sanderson refers to that video, I'm like, oh, I've seen that video. I know exactly the one you're talking about. Yeah. I'm going to go, unless anybody else wants to jump in, I'm going to go in order on my screen. So Matt, you're next.
So I'll be coming through the sound from Kirsten's one. That's why she's highlighted. Or Doug, sorry, I should say.
Oh yeah, I changed my name to Doug.
Yes, so I've read quite a few Cosmeres. It's not quite up there as my favorite because it's, I don't know, it doesn't have the same sort of like world-ending high-stakes things that is one of the things that really tends to draw me in a bit more. That said, it was a very lovely and entertaining and funny Princess Bride type story that I enjoyed quite a lot. As she said, one of Brandon's massive strong points is his world building. It's one of the best out there. There's so much thought that goes into it. And I really enjoy that part of his work. I know not everyone's a fan of his prose because it tends to be fairly straightforward and non-flowery, which I personally quite like, but it's not everyone's cup of tea. Some people find it a bit dry. It doesn't worry me though. But yeah, I had a real good time reading this one. Up there, not quite top tier for me, but it was very close. I know it's your personal favorite, but
Yeah, well, it has pirates
it
and
does
it's
have
like
pirates.
it's light-hearted and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mel.
Oh no.
I actually thought you would like this, Mel, so that face
I
is
know. I know you thought, you trust me. I know. I went in this really, really, really wanting to like it. I DNF'd at around about 285%. I'm cranky.
I'm interested to hear about why you're cranky.
Yeah, probably not the time for it yet, though. Let's get through impressions.
Okay.
But yeah, not a fan.
Oh, I'm disappointed.
I want to give it 2 stars, and one of those stars is because everybody else likes it, and I feel like I can't be that mean.
Yeah, well, you can't decide things based on whether other people like things.
Yeah, I know, but technically, yeah. Anyway.
Okay, that surprises me because I thought the whole found family thing would appeal to you. And
Look, I didn't get far
enough.
enough. I did not get
I
to
was
that
gonna
point.
say, I wonder
was
if you didn't get past the
bored.
island.
I was bored and shitted off before that stage, and I just couldn't get that far. I read the ending to find out what happened. Because I have no qualms about that sort of thing.
right. Okay. Chris.
Oh, okay. So, as I said earlier, I haven't read any Cosmere, so this was my first foray into it. I have to agree the beginning was dry, but it picked up, and once it did, I actually got into it fairly well and stormed through, I think, the tail end of the book. So, picking up on one rather, well, obvious to me twist, but yes.
Okay, Sarah.
I have read Sanderson, and I think having read Mistborn and read Starsight and Skyward was helpful for me. I wrote some notes before I'd actually finished, my first thought was, I thought this was like a YA to begin with, but now I said then, but I actually think it's Sanderson channeling his inner Terry Pratchett. And I thought that before I listened to him at the end, and I was bang on right about that. So, I felt like he hasn't, I've never read anything where he's actually written this way before. And that was one of my questions for you, Kirsten, was whether any of his other books take this approach, because there was so much in Hoyd's language that was actually from our world and words that he used. And I was down for that. It was very, and I haven't read a heap of Pratchett, but I was really reminded of some of the Pratchett that we've had. I also, and what else did I say? And I'm interested to see what Kirsten thinks. And I also said, I don't think this is the best intro to Sanderson. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, but it's not typical of his work that I've read, admittedly. I'm not sure if any of his other standalones from the work are using a similar tone, but this might set someone on the wrong idea about Sanderson if it's their first novel. And look at the classic cases Mel is going, and she, like,
Agreed.
absolutely. It was like when I did the second, I managed to give it again. I had to reserve it the first time. I lost the reserve before I finished my second listen through, but I skipped the first 10 chapters on my second read listen, because it's just, I was like, get off the island already. Like, it's just, it's a bit that way. And then I just thought that possibly for Sanderson, it's that opportunity for him to indulge his more playful side that maybe when he's got editors, he doesn't get to do it. And I love that he used Hoyd to do that. That was really cool. But being Sanderson, the world building's amazing. It's not a magic system, but it's a biological system. And that was, he's so good at that shit, right? It all makes sense. It's always
like
good.
His most batshit crazy magic system, and that's saying a lot for Sanderson, because all
Yeah,
of them are batshit
but
crazy.
it all made sense. It all made sense as usual because it's Sanderson, right? Because he's thought about it. So I loved it. But yeah, I think that I really enjoyed it. I found it what it was, and I understood. Like, once I said, oh, this is him feeling like he wants to do Pratchett. He never gets to do it. He wants to do this at last. And actually, a YouTuber I follow, I think some of you guys know her, Cecilia from Svalbard. She's a huge Sarah J. Maas fan, and everyone had told her she needs to get some Sanderson. And she started with this and actually abandoned it because she said, I've been told to go read Mistborn. So she started with Mistborn, and I actually think that's the right decision for her, being, you know, a Sarah J. Maas fan. So yeah, that's my take, but I'm looking forward to getting to it. Sorry, I went on a bit long.
I'll come back to the Hoyd thing and stuff. I'll let everybody do their general thoughts first, but I'm going to come back to some stuff you said. Alyssa.
Yeah, hi. I haven't read Sanderson before, and honestly, it's not my strongest genre, but I found it really delightful at first. I really liked the voice of the author, and I think halfway in, I got really bored of it and really tired of it, and I had to put it down and read a different book that was just much more real to earth. But then I came back to it pretty easily. So, you know, kudos to him, because I don't usually ever pick up a book that I've put down. I thought it was well done. At some points I got a little annoyed at him, just his Mormonness. Like no one ever has premarital sex. You know, it's like everything's just so black and white, and everyone's nice or evil, or yeah. That's about it.
Lisa.
Yeah, I wasn't sure for the first few chapters, but I have so much faith in our club that I went, okay, push through. And then
so generous of you, Lisa.
and then I got to the on the ship piratey stuff, and it was like, oh wow, I'm really quite enjoying this now. And then I read the rest of it really quickly, and I think I actually commented to Chris as well along those lines as well, because he was also like, got one of the first few chapters, like, I'm not sure this is really the sort of book I want to read. I said, I'll just push you a little bit further, sweetie, trust me, you may like it. So yeah, but yeah, it was it was, the first bit was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure, but yeah, then I really enjoyed it. I loved the world. I love the development of Tress. Like, I came to be like, oh wow, you go, girl. And I wasn't ready for the twist at all. Like, I was like, what?
I didn't see it coming either. Lots of people I saw online were like, oh, I saw that coming a mile off, and I was like,
yeah,
I did not.
Yes, at least I had to be quiet when I called it. So
yeah, because he hadn't finished it. And I had, and he's like, I think, are we giving spoilers? Are we saying it?
We can
Let's
do
say it.
spoilers for this book. I'm not going to do spoilers for other Cosmere books except for some maybe lore-y things, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, well, basically he said, I think Hoyd might be, I think the rat might be Charlie. And I'm like, that's interesting.
Poker face. I don't know what you're talking about.
No idea.
Yeah.
What do you think? Oh, that's an interesting idea.
he gave it all. It was given away.
He so many references. I made a note here, chapter 24.
Yes, you're all very smart. Shut up.
Yeah.
Kudos if you figured it out. Like, thinking back on it, I was like, oh yeah, there were clues. But when I read it, I was like, oh,
I wonder if we're too Cosmere oriented, that we're thinking too many levels down about who the rat could be, instead of the more obvious story based version of who the rat is. I was going through like all these other characters from other Cosmere series, even going like, is it one of these? Is it one of these? And it's like, no. And I'm like, I'm thinking too hard about it apparently.
Shane.
Let me put my microphone on. I found it delightful from fairly early on, very whimsical. Yes, very Stardust, very Neil Gaiman, as somebody else mentioned, and I was just enjoying that. It really caught me when the main character makes an assumption and then says, but I should probably check that. And I found that such a delightful change from so many other books.
I loved that too.
Yeah, that was good. And the story, like, it was a very whimsical, fairy tale-ish, things fall together and work out story. But
yeah,
Sanderson called himself on some of those narrative things a few times. Like, yeah, it'd be very convenient for me to have the pirates be this or blah, blah, blah. So, no, I really enjoyed it. Good fun little read.
I know this is your rodeo, but can I ask a quick question for everyone? Who's actually read the postscript from Brandon to this book?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I can't remember.
I had to listen. I listened to him, and I have comments about
Just things like Pratchett and Stardust and Princess
Yeah.
Bride and all these.
Yeah.
things.
the Princess Bride thing I didn't catch, but it's there totally. It's
Yeah.
totally there. Like that whole. Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, this is.
All right, back to you, Mala.
I was going to circle back to what you were saying, Sarah, about him writing in Hoyd's voice. And it's interesting because I was listening to the audiobook and
Can I ask that quick question? Can we get hands up who did audiobook?
I did audio.
I did
Okay, cool.
half and
I
half.
did both, so
You did both. Yeah, I was just interested because I really enjoyed the narrator's performance, and I was just interested to know who did it.
Oh, Michael Kramer. He does all of the Cosmere ones pretty much. I think there's one that he didn't do, but him and his wife both do. So Kate Redding is.
Yeah, she did sing. He did sing familiar from the start. The swords. You know, the one where everybody
Way of
goes
Kings.
off to get eggs. Yeah, that one.
I started listening and I was like, oh, that's Hoyd, because I know Michael Kramer's Hoyd voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's definitely Hoyd. And there's also some things about the way Hoyd talks. And one of the things so there was basically two reasons that Brandon wrote this book. One was because he wanted to write a book for his wife and he was inspired by The Princess Bride. And he was like, I wanted Buttercup to have more agency, blah, blah, blah. The other reason he said he wrote this was because he wanted to practice writing in Hoyd's voice, because his big magnum opus is, well, I mean, Stormlight's the magnum opus, I suppose, but he's writing a book called Dragonsteel, which is basically, he wrote a draft of it a long, long time ago, but he never published it. And he's going to eventually publish Dragonsteel, which is going to be Hoyd's backstory, the backstory of, I assume, more Cosmere stuff. So he wanted to practice writing in Hoyd's voice. And he said he did this in much more of a more whimsical way than he will for Dragonsteel. It's going to be much more serious in Dragonsteel. But this is Hoyd telling a story. And if you've read...
Take that as you will.
If you've read, like, I mean, Stormlight in particular has Hoyd telling stories. And he tells stories in this kind of tone, you know, like kind of whimsical, kind of really hanging shit on not only himself, but everybody else. Kind of really bad dad jokes is a Hoyd thing. I'm trying to think what else. But yeah, I was like, this is just so Hoyd, and this is why I asked about other people's Cosmere stuff, because I was like, the two things I loved the best about this was listening to Hoyd tell a story for a whole book instead of just a little story within the other books that he did. And all the little Cosmere references that were in this, because this had a whole lot of little Cosmere references that every time I got to one, I was like kicking my feet. So I was like, I bet this doesn't hit as good for somebody that doesn't have those things. Like, if you're not already like, you don't already love Hoyd from all the other things he's been in, then, you know, it's like coming to an old friend and sitting, like I felt like I was sitting by a fire with Hoyd and he's telling this story, and then he's like, and like seeing him in this situation where he's himself gave me absolute glee. Yeah, that's why I was like interested. But yeah, so what you were saying, Sarah, yeah, none of his other books sound like this. Some of the little stories that Hoyd tells in Stormlight have this kind of vibe, but they're like a couple of pages thing in a book that's 1,000 pages long. So
yeah, because in Stormlight Archive in the first, because Way of Kings is the first book in that, right? Yeah. So he isn't even Hoyd in that, he's Wit, which is when I got the joke in this, when he said everyone needs a little wit in their lives, and I was like, oh, of course, yeah, it's the same guy.
What did he say? Everyone needs a little more wit. Oh, except me, I could stand to lose a few pounds or something. And it's like, and I have my little wit. This came with the Way of Kings Kickstarter. It's my wit coin. Oh my god, it keeps, but it has wit on one side. It says one can have a wit, and on the other side it says, but one cannot have, but not a witless. But the witless side is a mirror. So when you look at the witless side, it's a picture of you. This is a very Hoyd thing as well. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, that was a little bit of a sidetrack. I'm probably going to get sidetracked a lot. Was there someone else who had?
I think Alyssa was going to say something.
Yeah. It's interesting, like, since I haven't read any, the introduction to Hoyt is really kind of cold and makes no sense. Like, he just says, oh, it was delivered by Hoyt, that's me, you know, in case you didn't realize it. It's like, who? What?
So Hoyt is in every Cosmere book.
Yeah, it's cool.
He is
Like,
been
once
to
you get
many
used to
different planets.
the voice.
He's in some books very, very minorly, and you might even, he's not even mentioned by name in some of them. Like, he's always described as having a hawkish face with like a pointing nose, a white hair, except in Stormlight he has dark hair. In Warbreaker, he's like an old man. He appears as an old man, but he's named as Hoyt.
Yes.
So he turns up in all of Brandon's books, basically. And
like a Stan Lee? Is that what he
kind of? Yeah, kind of. But
They're
he's
majorly
also,
If Stan Lee's cameo is
Stanley's
also
like-
an important person in the MCU.
he's like probably the most important person in the Cosmere. He's the most one of the most powerful people in the Cosmere. He collects different magic system powers like Pokemon cards.
It's interesting that he's in the whole book. Like, he's introduced early on because he's the guy who delivered the first cups, but then he's actually on the boats with her, and there's no clear path as how he got there. Or it's interesting to have that narrator. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think because he's telling this as a story too, he's filling in the gaps a little bit, you know, like he's telling things that he wasn't there for, but then he's telling it like he would tell a story, like you would read someone a story. So he's probably filling in a lot of gaps, I think, as he's telling the story to these people that there's hints about who he's telling the story to.
Right.
But it's a group of people from a novella that, you know, like this is what I mean. Like if you've read all of the stuff, there's like little tidbits that are really fun. But yeah, so there's a line he says in it that is like a throwaway line. And this is where I'm going to get into a Cosmere lore spoiler, which is not in any of the books, but because this is what happens with Brandon is he does these things where he says, you know, like people ask him questions at conventions and stuff and he answers the questions and then you're like, okay, so this is now a thing, but it's not.
How very JK Rowling of him.
It's not quite the same though, because I think she was more retconning things, and whereas he's got like these plans for what is coming, and so his thing is people ask questions and his thing is to say Raffo, which is a thing he picked up from when he finished Wheel of Time for Robert Jordan, because apparently it was a Robert Jordan thing. And Raffo is read and find out. So people will ask a question and he'll say Raffo, or he'll do this thing where he goes, that's a really good question, Raffo. And then it's like, okay, so what do you mean by that? You know, but the line that was in it, I've got to find it because I've got the PDF open. He says, I heard those words. I've said those words, the words that proclaim in bold-faced arrogance, I don't trust you to make your own decisions. The words we pretend will soften the blow, yet instead lay a condescension on top of an already existent pain, like dirt on a corpse. Oh yes, I've said those words. I said them with 16 other people, in fact. That line is a reference to, so the Cosmere used to have a god called Aiden Alcium. Aiden Alcium was murdered by 16 people and shattered into 16 pieces. And each of those 16 people took up one of the shards of Aiden Alcium. And that's basically where the power in the Cosmere comes from. Hoyt was there and part of the plot to kill God. He chose not to take up a shard, but he was there with these 16 other people that shattered Aiden Alcium. So this is the things that made me, when I was reading, go, oh my God, that's really cool that little line was there. But like, if you don't know that stuff, you wouldn't know that, you know what I mean? So this is why I'm like, I feel like this was a book that Brandon wrote for all the Cosmere fans and not necessarily people who weren't. And I was really interested to hear how it went down with people that didn't read all the other stuff. So anyway, sorry. I apologize because I know I'm going to be tangenting a lot here, but
No, it's cool.
I'm nerding out over a thing that I love.
Yeah, no, it's actually really useful and gives, I mean, yeah, if you were just going to ask me to talk about this, I'm done. It would be a very short meeting indeed. So thank you.
Hi, Naomi.
Hi, Naomi.
Did you, I don't know if you got sound on or not. Did you get to read the book?
Yeah, no, I finished the book last week.
Oh, awesome. Can I hear your general thoughts? Because I think we haven't got too far past general thoughts apart from me nerding out. So,
And how many of the Sanderson Cosmere novels you've read? That was the question.
I really enjoyed it. I quite like Tress. I like a pirate story, you know me. And how many Brandon Sanderson books have I read for the Cosmere? I mean, I haven't read anything else from him other than his Cosmere stuff, so have a look. So I have read all of the first Mistborn, like 1, 2, and 3, and I've started on the second trilogy of Mistborn. So I'm in the middle of reading Hero of Ages. I have read. I'm just doing a little scroll through. Actually, no, I have read other stuff other than the Cosmere. I've read all of his Skyward stuff, which I.
Yeah.
Although it could be argued that that's Cosmere, but that's a whole nother.
It's definitely not Cosmere. I'm gonna tell you there. That one's he's definitely actually come out and said this is definitely not Cosmere.
Yeah. And then the Bands of Mourning.
Doesn't matter what Brandon says.
Death of the author.
I'm sorry,
baby.
but if you create the gods that are so close they're almost unrecognizable from one another, there is going to be some people that are like, either you're just pulling from another story or there is actual crossover.
If it mentions Earth in any way at all, it's not Cosmere, because Cosmere doesn't exist in Earth doesn't exist in the Cosmere.
The planet they reference is never called Earth, as far as I'm aware. Like they call it the Old World, but not that we call it.
Anyway, what did you think?
I really enjoyed it. I said that.
Yep.
I really enjoyed it.
Yep.
I really liked Tress. I really enjoyed the sort of twists that were in the story. I like the cups.
Yes, I like cups too. I really liked that.
I like the cups. They brought me joy.
Okay, so anyone with questions or things they wanted to bring up, or?
And Sarah had a bucket list, right?
I did. I've got lots of notes.
I would love to. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say yes. I'd love to hear more from Mel as well.
Oh yeah, you wanted to know about what Mel did.
Oh yeah, I want to know. Okay, get it out of the way, Mel.
Mel.
Tell me what you didn't like.
Hey, there's 3
Break
major
her heart,
things.
Mel. Break her heart. Stand on it. Grind it into the floor.
Yes, I have every intention of being very quiet after this. Okay, 3 major things I did not like. He's not fucking funny. I was sitting there, I'm waiting for you, Mel Brooks style, punching constant jokes, Princess Bride esque funny. And I was like, could you tell a single joke I think it's funny, please?
Yeah, see, I looked at that and I was like, yeah, this is Hoyd being Hoyd. And I actually had this.
He's number 3. We haven't gotten there.
Because all of this is in Hoyd's voice, and Hoyd thinks he's fucking hilarious, and Hoyd is not as funny as he thinks he is, but I find that actually delightful.
See, I don't know.
This
So
is
let's
why
just
I
jump
say
to number 3. I don't know who the fuck
Punchable.
Hoyd is. I have no idea who Hoyd is. Why the hell was he telling this very nice story of this young lady that could have been interesting if it wasn't in some fucking male's voice? Don't even get me started on the Hoyd factor. Second, she's so ordinary. She's so very, very ordinary, except for she's not. And introduced the cups immediately. I was like, dude, why did I spend like how many paragraphs being told how very ordinary and very, very ordinary, and so ordinary that she can't be ordinary because she's just that much more ordinary than everybody, only to be told how very interesting she was and how very capable she was. And I'm like,
that was kind of the point, though.
It wasn't, though. It was stupid. It was so fucking stupid.
That was literally the point that Brandon was trying to make, was where it was like he was parodying these kind of stories where they do that thing. That was basically the point of it.
It didn't come off as a parody to
Oh,
me.
he
It
might
came
not
off
have
as stupid.
executed it well,
it
but
was-
that was what he was trying to do. That was 100% what he was trying to do.
Okay, and that's exactly it. Like we've had references to Terry Pratchett and all of that sort of stuff. He is nowhere near in that league. He was shit, in my opinion, for that. So yeah,
I
sorry,
would
that's
say
my
do
rant.
not read the Frugal Wizard one, because the Frugal Wizard one is even
I
worse
am not-
as far as him
this is
trying
the
to
end
do
of
to
Brandon
be
Sanderson
Pratchett and
beat.
failing.
Brandon Sanderson and I have got a complete breaking now. I have tried enough of his books and DNF'd enough that I'm like, that's it, I'm done.
Fair enough.
And
See,
that's me done.
I quite enjoy his dad joke humor, even though it's like I'm groaning at the same time as it. Like, yeah.
I like dad joke humor. I did not like his. I did not find it funny. I did not laugh at a single thing. I was just like, and I was expecting more of a punchy style, funny, like Princess Bride sort of thing, and I just did not find it here at all. So I was cranky from very early on, and at about 25% when we find out that Hoyd is actually the voice, and I have no idea who he is. I'm just like, this random dude who's on this ship is the voice. I don't care.
Fair
And I
enough.
was done at that stage. So that was my third point. I went and read the end and I was like, oh, Charlie was the mouse. Okay, the rat.
You didn't get to meet Ford.
Who?
Oh, see, I knew I was
No,
like,
no,
so
remind
looking
me.
forward to
No, the
hearing
name
about
sounds
Ford.
familiar. Please remind me who he
Ford
was.
was the guy that was deaf that had the like the board that he used as his
Oh, you know, I totally
communication
met him.
device.
100% met him and everything and did the whole thing with him. Introduced him to the board, all of that sort of stuff.
I
Very
really
cool.
liked that.
Yeah, he was about the only character I was actually enjoying.
I see. I liked all of the pirate characters, like all the
Yeah, but I didn't like the dark factor.
The which factor? The
Oh.
dark factor. Oh yeah.
See,
yeah,
I just mentioned my top 3 things that I had problems
Fair
with.
enough.
I just kept those. So I've done my rant. I'm good.
Okay.
Everybody else, please talk about your enjoyable
Thanks.
book. I'm very
Thanks,
happy for
Neil.
you to enjoy it.
Thanks, Neil.
And just to say that, I would agree. Like I said, that first section, that was actually one of the things. Like it's the way it's written is dull, and the only reason why I was able to persist through it was, apart from the fact I had Lisa telling me I should, is the fact that once it becomes apparent that it's written in a character's voice, you can forgive it a little bit. Yeah, you couldn't. I could, but yeah.
Aren't we lucky that art is up to the interpretation of the person viewing it?
I totally get it, because I get why Hoyd is divisive as a character, and like to listen, like a lot of people who read Stormlight were like, oh fuck, he annoys me, and he's not in it that much, and he's the whole book for this. So if you're not enjoying Hoyd, I get it, and I can understand him being a divisive character, and his voice and way of talking is divisive.
I personally probably could have enjoyed it if he wasn't telling somebody else's story. It was that element of his voice
But
that
that's
particularly jarred me, because I
that's
hated the way you
literally-
do these little fucking asides and all of that.
So Hoyd is a world singer, and his thing is telling stories. And so
I knew none of this. I knew none of it.
and this is what I mean, like not
It
knowing
got-
all this stuff.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it
Alyssa,
really
you were
got-
about to talk.
Is he a better narrator when he's not confused by the sorceress's spell?
Yes.
Curse?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's much more structural.
Yeah, because
like,
I agree.
like
It wasn't
he told a story in one of the Stormlight books that had me sobbing, like crying.
Right.
Oh, I
like
know that one.
he-
Yeah, because his stuff was a bit over the top in this one. I agree with Mel. But he was under a curse, so I can't blame him.
He also adjusts the way he tells a story depending on who he's telling it to. Like there's some stories that he tells to someone and it's kind of really inspirational, and there's some that he's just being silly, and he does be silly a lot. He's kind of he's been around a long time. I think he's just trying to amuse himself sometimes, like
So that's a
1,000 years old
question
and
that
I'm
I
bored,
have
so-
is all the use of the modern terms in this world, which I was trying to place because the world that he was building was very much like 1800s, it's pre-industrial age, right? But there was words that he was using as the narrator, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And I was thinking, who's his audience is his audience of Earth, because he used words like
No.
and his characters used words as well that wouldn't have existed. So Huck keeps going, yeah, like that was when I was like, that's kind of I don't know why I think that's modern, but I kind of do. And Tress keeps saying okay. And then there was the word he said, and it's and Hoyd would say, yes, it was gross, it was disgusting and gross not to mean large, which it would have meant in 1800s, but to mean disgusting, coming from monstrous. And then he talks about the laptop that the sorceress is using, and the smoothie. He talks about something or other smoothie, and a smoothie is like something we've only really had for like the last 20 or 30 years as far as words in etymology. And then there was one other that I thought, which I did crack up at. I found myself, everyone has different stories for different folks, and I was kind of just enjoying this from what it was. And there were times I was bursting out laughing from some of his quotes. But there was one that, video conferencing engaged. And I said here, oh, how I laughed, because I just cracked up laughing, because it was like, you're not even pretending that you're not telling this story to a whole lot of earthbound people. But then you're saying, oh no, I know who he's telling it to. So I was like, well, is this a Hoyd that has lived this long, that this story, like he's telling it in the 21st century? That was one of those things. Or is this world got a whole lot of modern language, because if I think about The Princess Bride, it is very good at keeping its language in its time period, that even though it's it's a parallel world to us, it's still trying to, I think the only thing is Billy Crystal is the only one who kind of an MLT where the mutton is just nice and lean and the lettuce is
So I have answers to these questions.
Yeah, like 5 different things to mention.
So this is far future Cosmere, and Matt was like, I don't understand what you mean by that, because if we go by Mistborn, which is the thing most people are most familiar with, the first era of Mistborn is quite almost medieval, almost the industrial age, not
it's
quite.
important to remember that it's not Earth.
It's not Earth. It is
And
not. Earth does not exist in the Cosmere.
And some of the planets have somewhat analogous
like there's
historical periods, but they're not exactly the same. Like
someone was like, what planet would Hoyd like best? And that someone said Scadrial, which is the Mistborn planet, because it's the only one that has instant noodles. So like things like this, but so Brandon's big plan is for there to be separate eras of different things. So he's had era 1 Mistborn, era 2 Mistborn is Victorianish age.
I thought it was kind of gunslingers as well, like it's kind of like the Wild West, which sounds really cool, to be honest.
But then steam trains, it's very steampunky.
Yeah, I was going to say steampunky.
Era 3 will be 1980s-ish.
Cool. Okay.
Going to be future, space age Cosmere is the last thing he's going to write. This is space age Cosmere. So this is way in the future of any of the other books that have been written. This is past all of the Stormlight Archive books, or at least I think all of them. It's past all of the Mistborn. It's definitely past all of the books that have been published. As evidenced by the rocket ship that how do you say her name? Rena,
the sorceress.
Rocket ship that she takes off in at the end, because we're space age Cosmere here. So Tress's planet doesn't have that technology. That's why she's the sorceress, and it's very clear. She's like, oh yeah, I'm going to say some magic words, when really she's
pressing some buttons on the laptop.
She's using magic from she's from the book Elantris. She's not in the book Elantris, but she's from that world. That's what her power comes from. And that's what Hoyd's been after since that book. That was Brandon's first book. Hoyd has been after the Elantrian powers since that book. He's been trying to get the Elantrian powers since that book. And so this is where, in the bit at the end where he's like, finally, because he has been trying to get these powers for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, that's what I realized later. I'm like, he may be telling the story to a more modern audience and using the language of today, even though it's set in a time and a place that didn't have the language. So I was trying to kind of bear that in mind, but also kind of going,
which is kind of
where is
this? He's telling the story to people from a planet called First of the Sun, which is from a book called
It's not even from a book, it's from
a short story called Sixth of the Dusk. And there's a few little hints in there about who he's talking to. There's a hint about something called AVRs, which is a thing in that world. There's a hint about, oh, the rocket ships you've seen landing on your planet. There's a few little hints he puts in there that tells you that that's
The
the planet.
story, the story that he's telling, the audience, sorry, for the story he's telling, is of a lower technological level than the
No,
things
but
that
they
he's talking
won't be
about.
by this
Oh, by
point.
that time they already know that. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
by
but
this
they
point-
obviously have smoothies, so they have, you know, they have that, and they're, you know, they're
Yeah,
good.
I mean, they have instant ramen. They have
Yeah, right. Cool.
so and also they make a point of saying that Fort's device is an awakened technology, and that's a thing from the Lawbreaker series.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing that the sorceress does with, what does she do? Use like cloth or something?
Yeah.
To wrap Tress up. That's a power from the Lawbreaker books. So it's
Okay.
like,
Yeah. No, I got some of that. Like, I got some of that, but it was more around the fact that the time period is very of, I guess, the 16 or 1700, you know, like, because he talks about galleons, you know, all
yeah,
I can
so different planets. have
all
got
my
different
knowledge
levels of
comes from
technology.
Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I just want to point that out. Like,
Yeah, so this
that's
planet
my
has
total
less
knowledge
technology.
of being on the ships and being a pirate is playing Black Flag, which Mel loves.
I felt,
And this is why like the sorcerer, it seems like this powerful thing, because she's got technology that this world doesn't know about, because different planets in the Cosmere have got different levels of technology at different time periods.
That
So
makes
you can
sense.
travel from one planet that's got like our level of technology and go to another planet that's got a lot, you know, Victorian level of technology. So the Tress planet has lower level of technology, but in the Cosmere itself, there exists more, which is why Rena has a spaceship and a laptop and
Once they introduced, I felt once they introduced the tablet, like it kind of established itself as, no, this is a world that's influenced by others. So technology
And they were
time.
And as she says, we're used to hearing visitors, like we've heard of visitors coming from the stars. This is you're my first one that I've met. So the idea wasn't foreign to them, which was cool.
but I did find it, I found it jarring, that sort of like what Sarah's talking about, like which time period is it? And I figured that I got pretty early on that no, it's on another planet in a place where there's different levels of technology and stuff. But it felt a bit jarring from the point of view of, like, if you walk into like an antique store and there's a combination of really, really, like, there's vintage stuff and there's antique stuff and there's mid-century stuff, and it's quite jarring, and you're like, I don't know what this shop wants to be. It felt a bit like that with the book as well. It's like, it feels like you want to be sort of steampunky piratey, which is great, but then the other stuff just confuses me. So I just kind of ignored it a bit.
I've probably read too much for it's done.
Because
No.
I was enjoying the steampunky piratey story.
Whereas in my case, whilst they seem mishmashed, the way it's all put together and introduced and held together felt acceptable. Like, it wasn't like, yes, it's jarring from the world's context, but no, this is an influenced world. These are things that have been brought in, they've been dropped in by somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's being told from the perspective of somebody who's actually aware of that.
Yeah. I think it was just the language he was using and giving words to these characters that were mostly it was the slang of it that I was like, okay, I get it, I'm like, oh, okay, like, so it's whoever he's in, it's us, but I'm like going, is it us? Like, is he actually talking to Earthlings? Like, it was a little bit like that. Is it
Brandon
us?
did that a little bit. There was a line in it that I was like, oh, you bastard, you, because there's a bit where he says, what does he say? I've got to try and
while we look that up, there's about the language stuff. I think it's, even though they might use words like laptop and smoothie, they're not English words. We're hearing it through a translation to English because we read the book, but it's not the word laptop and it's not the word smoothie. There's some analog word for that in fact, whatever language Hoyt is actually speaking.
The way that language works in the Cosmere is through something called connection, where you have to have connection with the planet that you're on, and then you can understand the language of other people on that other planet.
It's like a universal
basically it's like a universal translator. So it will translate things into something you can understand. There's a bit in Stormlight where he's talking to a character and he says something like, a bunny rabbit and a, what's he say? A bunny rabbit and a something go for a
I
little
think you're
walk.
getting a little too nerdy for this
Sorry,
group of
just-
people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we're
And
just
then,
kinda talking
and then he
about
goes,
this,
oh, I
and-
forgot, because the person he's talking to has no idea what those things are, and he's like, oh, I forgot how stupid your planet is, and then he changes the way the words that he's using, because like the person
Yeah.
he's talking to is like,
No, yeah, and they do talk about Ulam says something about it's Christendom or something that they're speaking. She says, "Are we even speaking the same language?" And she says something like, "Oh, you know, like Christendom or something." So you know, I got like anyway. It was just one of those things where I was it was yeah. I also who kind of got hints about the Huck
I
being
didn't. I was
Charlie?
dumb. I did not
Yep.
see it coming.
Yeah, I wrote here chapter 24, which is and that was the first kind of hint, because I remember going and it's you know, Hoyt says, you know, maybe I should look extra carefully or you should look extra carefully to check whether the thing you've been searching for has been with you the entire time. And I said, wow, that sounds like a big, you know, thing. And then I wrote here at chapter 55, 56, because I wrote there, is Huck actually Charlie? Like, because that seems like a bit of a you know, going to tell you exactly what the answer is. And then I said here, Huck sabotaging the food supplies. Interestingly, I thought about halfway through the book, we haven't had much of Huck again. Did anyone else pick up on that? Well, we had him a lot at the beginning. Then we got caught up in the whole, and he kind of just disappeared. And I was like, you know, and I said he was an interesting device at the beginning, but I'm surprised he has not been part of Tress's journey more. So when he sabotages, I was all, oh no, but also I should have seen this coming, because Sanderson kept him around after his purpose was seemingly over, and maybe he is Charlie. So
well done, because I did not see it coming. Hey, I knew.
And then chapter 60, I was like, I was right.
Yeah, I think I was like, I could tell straight away that she needed to get Hoyd to the sorceress. And I was like, this is that. I think that was like the red herring for me. Like, it was like, you know, I was too focused on Hoyd and I wasn't thinking about Charlie, or wasn't thinking about Huck.
Yeah, so that's your problem. You're too invested in the Cosmere. So you're
That's
still
what I
so
said.
excited about Hoyd, you weren't looking at the rest of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. But
On
you
the
picked it.
reread, I was like, oh my
Chris.
God, there were so many hints. So I reread
Yeah.
it. And I
actually-
was like, oh my God, why did I not see that?
I said I
What
picked
did you
off
say?
something more subtle. I actually just
Yeah.
took it off the way he was Huck's communicating with her and talking.
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally communicating with Charlie. Yeah, yeah. And on a Larry listen, I hear it. I completely hear it. Yeah. Which was awesome. I did have shades. I don't want to spoil anything, but there were shades of there were shades for me when we went because he was like trying her not to go to the sorcerer, and I had shades of Orseer situation from a Spawn and what actually happens there. So
Speaking of,
I don't want to give anything away.
I
because
won't get into that because it's a huge myth spawn spoiler. But
yeah, it's a huge
of-
spoiler. But I had shades of that, of like, yeah. And I wonder, you know, so I thought, oh, is he doing that again? Where, you know.
Did you notice what Ulam was?
I didn't. I had to have Reddit tell me. And I was
what
like,
I thought.
ah.
Guess what I thought Charlie was? I mean, what I thought Huck was.
What did you think Huck was?
A Chandra.
You did. So you thought
See, I
he was
going
the
all Cosmere, right?
right. Ulam was one of my favorite characters.
I liked Ulam, and he reminded me strangely of Dr. Zoidberg.
Yeah.
You know.
And the narrator I had was all, like, his narration of him was really cool. I really liked it. And I don't like, that's the thing, like when you show, there was I don't know if it's in the artwork you shared or somewhere else when they show him, and I'm like, no, that's not what he looks like.
I think there's a picture of Ulam in this one.
I think maybe, I don't know, because they talk about his red eyes. Maybe it was in that Reddit thing where someone had done
It might have been.
yeah. But
There's probably a picture of him on the copper mine somewhere.
yeah, no, so I didn't pick that he was a Chandra, but I was like, oh, that makes someone basically saying he's a Chandra, right? He's like,
That's
and
why
I was
I
like,
kept going, can I have your eyes? Can I have your body?
Well, that's why he could keep attaching bits to himself, because I was like, what? And then I was like, but the ones I've spent the most time with, wear animal bones, but that makes sense that that's why Matt thought Huck was a Kandra. But yeah.
I'm like, what from reading?
And also because they're sidekicks, because
animals
that's what Orsi had been. He had been the sidekick, right? So yeah, Huck was a sidekick in animal form. So yeah, no, I didn't get it until afterwards, and then I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And have you? Oh, that was my question. Has he been in any other books? Because Hoyd and him seem to have known each other really, really well, and I just wondered if he's been in other books.
He is in Mistborn Era 2.
Okay, cool, right. Well, I like him, so I should read it.
He's a minor character in it.
Sorry, Huck or Charlie?
No, Ulam.
Ulam. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
And he does kind of go like, there's a comment somewhere where Hoyd was like, Ulam didn't do anything to help me with my curse, and Ulam's like, it's your problem, mate. Like, and he's like, but he did write some letters to some mutual acquaintances about to make sure they knew about all the embarrassing stuff that I was doing.
Guess what Hoyd's up to this time?
Yeah, sorry, I was gonna.
Should we talk about Captain Crow, Anne, Fort, and Soleil?
Yeah.
Captain Crow was a really good villain.
Yep.
And the bit where she shoots herself, like I did not, that was a cool scene, and I did not see that coming. That was cool.
I'll find a picture, because there's a great picture in here of her.
It's very Medusa-esque.
Yeah, she was a really good villain. Oh, here we go. With the
Closer.
It's hard because it keeps. I'm trying to stand like.
No.
Yeah, hold it up to yours because
Mine won't.
you don't have a background.
Yeah.
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 Yes, and not grotesque enough as from what in my head.
I
It was really
envisioned
bad.
it a lot more gross looking too.
Yeah, she's still looking pretty good there. But yeah, she was a really and scary. Like you really thought. Yeah. I thought Anne was really fun, and I had. Oh God, what was I've just got the prequel to it. What was the really cool romance we read? Maybe it was part of the romance books that we read, where there's the the orc. Mel, you muted. I can't hear a thing you're saying.
Legends and Lattes.
Yes, Legends and Lattes. And in there, the friend that comes and helps, when the troops, her friends from the band come in, and she's got the cool, I don't know, the pixie. Anyway, I envisioned that person again, which is like, small and wiry and like in for trouble. So I just had the same person again, and I was just like, oh, this is cool. I like these kind of characters. And Fort was awesome. And I sense now that I understand that he had the Princess Bride, you can kind of see where they, come from, these when they sort of fit in to.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, but that's a good point.
Yeah, because Fort is essentially what's his name?
Fezzik.
Fezzik. How do I forget that? Fezzik.
Oh.
If I think about it.
That together. Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I didn't until afterwards. I like he's really influenced
like a kind
by
of Fezzik-like character.
But this band of people who kind of balance each other out.
Yeah.
Crow certainly was no Vicini. Like she's much worse than Vicini.
I kept wanting to find a way to feel sympathy for Crow, but I think you weren't supposed to because I couldn't.
No,
I don't.
Yeah. And Soleil
was
Soleil was basically an Inigo Montoya, searching for the father, revenge for the father, very good at what she does, just like Inigo is. And then there's Wesley, who I'm guessing is kind of Tress, but kind of like Anne's the hard one. I think Anne is probably more like Vicini than anybody else.
I really enjoyed Anne.
Yeah, I love the fact that she had this. That was one of my favorite conversations. Actually, was the conversation that she has about like, why are you so nuts about guns? It's like, why do you love guns? Why do you love cannons? You know, and like, what is it? It's like, I thought
The
that's
joy that she had of
really
like wanting to shoot the cannons and being
short-sighted.
sucky at it. I was like, I just loved that Tress was like, I've got this boon to ask of this dragon. Can I ask for things for three small ones instead of one big one? And then she got the three things that they want. Like she got the board for Fort to replace the broken one. And that broke my heart, by the way. When his board got broken, I was like so upset for him. And then she went and got it again. And I was like, okay, this is my found family. This is what I love.
Yeah.
And
but that was also the bit where you're like, it's on, bitches. It's on. If you ever
Oh, I love the little subtlety. Also, the new board is in a different font.
I think the predictive text worked better on the new board too.
Yeah.
Can I just shout out that I adored the scene with the dragon, and I loved that the dragon was watching them and just playing along. You could just see him like putting his head down, like eating popcorn, going, "Yep, okay, keep going." Yep, it was just great. The whole sequence.
I loved that she was like, I brought this thing for you. I've brought you this captain, and it was like, hang on a second.
That was such a good twist.
That's my line.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey.
I was like, you've definitely been hanging out with pirates for long enough now that you really. Good.
Sarah, I wanted to follow up on a couple of things you said. With Wesley, and for I don't know that he's intentionally doing direct analogs, but there's less room for Wesley if you give Buttercup agency, which I think is solid for the story.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's just that Tress, when you think about, sorry, I know The Princess Bride inside out. When Wesley is talking to Buttercup about being on the good ship Revenge, have I got that right? I'm pretty sure I have. He says, it was a fine time for me. I was learning defense, anything anyone would teach me. And I think that's like very much how Tress was, like anything she could learn, she was up for. So while she's like, what if Buttercup had agency? She's superior to Buttercup in a way, because Buttercup is like the thing that annoyed Mel is like that whole ordinary thing where all anybody kept saying she was the most beautiful person in the land and all, and all of that. But as far as she does, and then maybe the end of it, she's very much, I felt she might have a bit of Wesley, but she was also her own person, which was cool. But I certainly, I thought she was just kind of getting in there. She'd learnt the tricks, like the dressing up and the barrels thing where they like, it wasn't her in the barrel. That was kind of cool. And, it just reminded me of the whole, like, if we only had a Holocaust cloak, why didn't you name that on our list? Sorry, I love that movie.
That's right. And one of the things I particularly liked about Captain Crow as a villain is you found out her motivation, you found out her secret and what was going on for her and what she was after, and she was worse as a villain after that. Like, it's like, oh, this isn't a weakness that we can exploit. This means that she's implacable and effectively unstoppable. And that was really good. That like move was very cool, I thought.
I feel like he talked about that in the postscript a little bit, that he didn't want, like usually when you find out the motivations, it lends empathy of like, oh, this is, but actually you're like, he didn't want that. He wanted to have much more of a fairy tale of there's black and white to it. So I think, I don't know if you read that part or listened to that part, Shane? I
did read the postscript.
Yeah, because I'm sure he referred to that and said, so if you picked it up on your own, awesome. Yeah, because that was, I'm pretty sure Sanderson had that intention of not wanting to have her mother walked out when she was young, or, wanted no empathetic, reasoning to like you said, that she's unstoppable because she had nothing to lose, which was also really cool. Like there was nothing to lose. So she was willing to throw everybody under the bus to kind of, or out the gangplank.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
I don't know if I would say I had more sympathy for her, but I definitely saw
No.
her as trapped, which I hadn't before. Like some villains, you find out what they're doing, and it's like, well, you're just a jerk. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, Crow is trapped. Crow
Yeah.
can't see
It's
any
good
other way.
motivation. It's good motivation
yeah.
because
Yeah, absolutely.
it isn't just I want $1 million. It's, you know, you kind of go, okay, yeah, I get
Yep.
that, but it's yeah. So I thought as far as what the motivations were, that was pretty cool.
Yep.
Was it by accident? Sorry, just to go off. Is it by accident that Huck and Tress ended up in the same place, or was Huck just trying to get back
I
to?
think the sorceress did that on purpose as part of her
Right.
like I like torturing people thing, because it's like
That's what I
it's
figured.
much more painful for him to be right near her and still not
Right.
be able to tell
'Cause
her who it was.
He was on the boat when it was at the island, so he must have been already in the hold. So I just wondered if he was trying to get back to the island to
They
her.
didn't spell that
and
out,
his
but I got the
I wasn't
impression
sure.
that the sorceress had done that on purpose because she
Oh.
gets off on making things more difficult.
Chris?
Yeah, I just actually rescanned part of that where Huck first appears. And yeah, it's with the knowledge of the end, yeah, it's very obvious that he was on his way back there to collect Tress. You know,
Right.
his curse was, you know, he had to present her.
Yeah.
But he didn't get off the boat because he
No,
was
'cause he got caught.
but he was caught
first.
He got caught first. Yeah. And he was in the thing. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. What was I gonna I had another. Can we talk about the different spores and the ethers and all of that? Because I thought that was really cool world building, and this is kind of like a world I want to see, like these different moons that are basically stationary satellites that are puking out stardust. It was kind of cool. I don't know, and I just thought it was really neat, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to see that. They sound like they're very low in orbit. Like that's
yeah.
Is that what everybody else kind of got? There?
Pictures, Sarah, to the one of the chats.
Oh, sorry. Mel's picking up her
on the
her
cover.
thing.
There's a bit of a showing you how big it looks in the sky.
Yeah.
The ones in this one too.
So cool.
Then you can sort of see the moon.
You have to do it, Matt's. You have to do it, Matt's camera.
Yeah, doesn't work up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I posted. There's no official
Yeah, that's so
picture
big.
of the planet and its moons or a map of the world per se.
Yeah.
But people have come up with some visualizations of what they think it looks like. I posted
That's
a couple
so cool.
red. And it kind of like the seas are basically like, I think
One of the interesting
they're either
ones.
hexagonal or maybe dodecahedral.
I want to show this picture. So this is meant to be the same scene as she's crossing from the Emerald Sea into the Crimson Sea, and it's like a line, like, and they're meant to be like hexagons, aren't they?
I think
Right. I didn't
12
sense it was a line, but I don't remember. Like it was a slight muddling, I thought, but you know.
Yeah, it could have
it's
been
cool.
more slight, like
that might be
Yeah.
the artistic.
This was partly like they were allowed to use 2 colors on each.
Yeah, which was cool. Yeah. No, I saw that too, because in the digital thing that you sent, it looks like a hard line, but then it makes sense because it's actually designed for print. So yeah, it makes much more sense that would have been that way. Yeah. But I thought it was really cool, and I thought I recognized the word aethers from Mistborn, because that's what they burn, right?
They burn metal.
No, they burn the metals, but I remember it from Mistborn for some reason.
It shows up in Mistborn Era 2.
But I'm sure it's in 1. Anyway.
Yeah, in 1 they burn different metals for their powers, but there is some links. Like there's a link.
Yeah, because I thought the metals were also, because they talked about there being 10 or 12, and I was like, well, that's how many metals there are. So that's why
the numbers come up a lot. The number 16 comes up a lot. The number 12 comes up a lot. The number.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a coincidence, but they're
maybe
not directly related.
They're related. So there's a line, the line that I was talking about, where I was like, Brandon, you bastard, was like, hang on, I had it before, and then I've got to find it again. So when she was building, she was using the rosite.
Yeah.
Took a tool that resembled a shield and pressed it to the rosite. The crystals responded immediately, pulling toward the metal, which from the slate grey colour seemed to be simple iron. The other tool, the trowel that made the crystals grow away from it, it was of a polished silvery metal. Steel for those who compulsively track those things. So
that was for you guys.
that was a dig at all of the fans who
Right.
compulsively
No,
track
I remember
things.
listening to that again today, and I just thought it was like,
So in Mistborn, if you burn steel, it
mhm.
pushes. If you burn iron, you can pull things.
Right.
So in this, when she uses the steel, it pushes on the crystals, and when she uses the iron, it pulls on them. And so this is one of those things where the Cosmere stuff kind of overlaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, it's really okay. That's pretty cool. And I don't know if we found out all of them, but seemed very. Anyway, I really liked the
we
world
did find
building
out
with the
about. I don't
spheres
think
and stuff.
we were told all of the we were told there were 12, but we don't know what all of them are.
We don't know, and we don't know what they did.
didn't
Like
have
there was
a
a
word.
sapphire sea, and I don't remember. That was where Soleil and Fort were from, and I think they said
Sapphire
released
was, I think,
air.
where they got the Zephyr crystals. You know, the blue
Yeah,
ones.
that was air, I think. Yeah, air. Yeah, but I don't remember all of them. Was it the
I
sunshine?
didn't tell you all of them because people have been trying to figure this stuff out.
Right. Yeah.
There was the rosite, there was the verdant one, the green one that made the plants. There was the crimson one that made like the spikes.
Yeah.
Midnight one's a very interesting one.
And the sapphire
the
that releases
Zephyr one.
air, and then is there one what's the fire one?
Crimson.
Which one? Crimson?
No. Crimson was spikes, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah,
crimson
what's the one
spikes.
that she was filling the spores for, like, so that they would ignite? Because then that's what
That's
Zephyr
the air.
spores.
The air ones.
Yeah.
Are they air or are
Yeah.
they?
They don't combust. They just.
I thought that was the sapphire ones. The sapphire ones had air.
That was the Zephyr spores they were called.
Is there a combusting one?
Don't remember.
Only 4.
Oh, maybe that was
Hang on.
okay. So
Copper Mind will
I
be that.
thought
Hang on, I'll look on the bottom.
Given she practically blows herself up with her first experience with Zephyr spores, I took them
Zephyr. Sorry, Chris.
as I took them as explosive, but no, I'm just having a quick search now.
Yeah, and actually
air.
thinking about it, Zephyr makes sense if it's wind, but I thought they talked about sapphire because I remember her talking about sapphire where Soleil and Fort were from, and the spores there released air. Like she says, they only like, but maybe Zephyr and sapphire are actually the same. But yeah.
Yeah, because the way I understood it is it's not explosive in the sense that it's a chemical combustion.
It's not fire.
Yeah, it's not.
It's a propellant of
Just
air.
pressure.
Right.
From the air.
Right. Which makes sense with the name Zephyr. Yeah.
It actually says that outright. So yeah.
Yeah.
From-
Sorry.
From the printed book, I don't remember any sapphire, so I think pronunciation was happening there.
The sea was called the Sapphire Sea, but
yeah.
the spores were
yeah.
the Zephyr spores.
Oh,
Cool.
so they're the two in the same. Okay.
Like
Okay,
the
Crimson Sea.
yeah, the Crimson
and
Sea, but they were, what were those called?
they're the rosite ones.
Are those the rosite? Are they the rosite? Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Folks,
And the
I'm going to
verdant
have
of
to
it.
head off. Sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
no, go.
I'm going to have to head off. This dog needs a walk before it gets too late for me. So
Fair
thank
enough.
you all.
Okay.
It's very nice.
Thanks,
No,
Shane.
Thanks, Shane.
Thanks.
Catch you next month.
Cheers.
So the Copper Mine only has 4 on the list.
Okay.
Rosite, Zephyr,
Verdant and black.
yeah, Midnight, although it's listed
Midnight.
differently. It probably needs updating.
There is a mention that there might be distant lands where the spores were reportedly crimson, azure, or even golden. So
Yes,
a
I
possibility
remember
of
that.
12 worlds, but there are 4 basic ones in this story.
Yeah. I think he wants
Yeah.
to use the ethers more in future books. So I think Brandon knows what they're all going to be, but like,
I
They sound
feel
pretty.
like that Tress had some sort of affinity for them, which was not fully explored. Might have left it open for future stories about Tress. Maybe
he has said he's not going to write about Tress again.
Oh, okay.
But like, I mean, he said that before about other things and then gone, I just felt like writing another book. So you never know. But he hasn't got any plans to write any more stories about Tress, but ethers are going to show up in other stories.
Are the
Yeah,
other
more than just
Kickstarter?
one.
Are the other Kickstarter books from Hoy? Are they Hoy telling stories?
One of the other ones is from Hoyt's point of view, and like
Two are non-Cosmere, right?
no, the other one. So there's 3 of them are Cosmere, one's non-Cosmere. I love Brandon, but I don't recommend, especially Mel, if you thought this was trying to be Pratchett and failing. That other one, I felt like that with it. I was like, oh god, this is like not my thing. That was it was trying to be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and failing personally.
So it's Douglas Adams.
That was the
The Frugal Wizard.
The Frugal Wizard one. And that was a non-Cosmere one. So Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, highly recommend. Really, really enjoyed that. It was very anime kind of ish. Brandon's inspiration for that one was partly the story Your Name and partly something else, I forget. But it has Hoyt in it. He's basically telling the story. And in that one,
sorry, could you say the name of that one again, Kirsten?
it's called Yumi and the Nightmare Painter.
And you said it's got inspiration from Your Name, which is one of my favorite animes. Yeah.
I really
one of my favorite movies.
It is told from Hoyt's point of view. Hoyt is a coat rack in the entire book, and I mean that literally.
Right.
So, yeah, there's the. You thought he had it bad in this book, and that one is like literally.
I know he was very. I enjoyed lack of taste Hoyt.
The third one is not told from Hoyt's point of view. It's told from another character's point of view. Brandon says that you can read it if you've not read Cosmere. I disagree. I don't think, if you haven't read the Stormlight Archive, I don't think you would enjoy that book. I think some of its world building would be confusing, and I think all of its emotional gut punches don't hit if you haven't read Stormlight. So while in theory you could read it, I don't think you would enjoy it anywhere near as much. So that one's called The Sunlit Man. I would not ever recommend that one to be the first thing you read in Cosmere.
Yeah.
So
I think speaking that Tress should not be the first thing in Cosmere.
Not necessarily.
No.
I mean, it's different to his other stuff, but then also it is like I wouldn't say read Way of Kings is the first one to go into either, because it's huge and it's, I don't know. I think Mistborn's a good starting point, but
Mistborn is Cosmere as well.
And Naomi, were you about to say something?
I was just going to say, no, definitely don't read Way of Kings as your first Brando Sando book. You will want to kill yourself. Read any of his other books. Mistborn, start off with something like
Bridges, right?
Start off with Skyward to like ease yourself into his style of writing. For the love of God and all things holy, do not start with Way of Kings, because those books go on for fucking ever. And
that's why I didn't make it. I didn't finish the second one because it was like
eased yourself into his writing. You're never going to make it. You're just going to give up, because you're like, does this man ever end?
No, he doesn't.
Stop?
He doesn't. He never stops. And
no. Yes, no. Please, for the love of God, don't ever read Way of Kings as your first Brando Sando book, because you'll never read another one, because you'll think that that's what all of his books are, and they're not all that epic-y huge. Like there are some of them that have that sort of epicness, but like it is one of the larger ones of his stories.
It's also like the most depressing.
Yes.
So depressing.
It's a fucking war. It's a world with an ongoing awful cultural war where people aren't even trying, like, it's horrible. It's horrible. It's just, sorry. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Way of Kings. I wanted to make a comment speaking of, sorry?
Isn't that our shtick?
What? I know.
Talking about exactly what we're not supposed to.
Yeah, it's on here somewhere. Sorry, I was trying to show my shirt.
Going off topic. Well, it's sort of like
it's somewhat on topic, but it's not directly.
So is Miss, what did you say,
Mistborn?
Mistborn is a Cosmere world one?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
quietly bought a copy whilst we've been talking. So
I really enjoyed it, and if you're a video gamer, you will. I actually think you'll really love it because it's a magic system. So
It would work
it's
so
just-
well in a video game.
it would. It's everybody, and so many people say it, and they say like I've watched people and they go, and what if you could have any book made as a video? They go Mistborn. Like it's just easy. It's such an easy because oh man, it would be so good. Anyway, the final, when they get to the midnight spores and there's those midnight monsters, I didn't see what they had on there. Does anyone remember in Ghibli's Howl's Moving Castle, the black henchman from that? I just wanted to say that's what I imagined is those gooey, tarry black henchmen in that. And when you said that he was taking inspiration from Your Name, I was like, oh, I wonder if he was also taking some inspiration from that, because that whole bit I was like, oh, they were creepy. There's so much creepy stuff in the house anyway, But yeah, I found that. I just wanted to see if anybody else got that. Anyone else was going, yes, I remember those.
I didn't like in my mind go, that's what it reminds me of, but I envisioned basically exactly the same thing. And now that you mention it, I'm like, oh yeah.
It reminded me of the goo in X-Files.
Oh yeah.
Reminded me of that actually.
You're talking to the right people.
I was much younger when X-Files was out, and I found that really creepy.
Oh yeah, when it went behind over people's eyes and stuff. Yeah.
I just wanted to say finally, I also, regardless of anything, I actually really enjoyed a lot. I wrote down some of the quotes because I just was laughing or just enjoyed what Hoyd was saying to this modern day audience that may or may not be Earthlings. I wrote like something about the moon's already on the floor and wearing sequins. That was just great because I've been getting into Drag Race at the moment, so I was like, I see you. And then it's a pity G's not here, but I have Kirsten and the bit about more twisted than a librarian's love life. I was just like, oh, I know some librarians. And then a bit that I loved, weaponized vexology. Watch out for the solid plates. And I'm such a nerd, so I pissed myself laughing when he said that. So yeah.
There's a bit I enjoyed where he's like, he talks about slant rhymes a lot. He's like, an acceptable little poem if you're the sort of barbarian who enjoys slant rhymes. And then right at the end, when the sorceress does her poem, like the spell that she does, and he's like, she's doing this on purpose, barbarian, because she's got all these slant rhymes in it, and it's like, is
it this book? I seem to recall like where he calls out writers.
Oh yeah, probably. I mean, there's
taking a dig at himself.
There was a few times that Brandon was very deliberately having a dig at himself in this book. I should have highlighted them or something, but I listened to the audiobook and I'm not like putting marks in this. So I was just going through the PDF just now trying to find things because I was like, oh yeah, that was definitely a dig that Brandon was having at himself. Oh, there's a line that he said too that I'm like, I know what he's referring to there when he was talking about not loaning out your like in the job that you're doing, loaning out your body but not your mind, basically. Like when he's talking about Tress scrubbing the floor and stuff, and how
and people thinking, don't mistake people who are doing menial jobs for being idiots. In fact, that's probably the best. And I was like, oh, that's really
and he said something along the lines of, like people get looked down on if they sell their bodies, but they don't if they sell their minds. And it's like, and what he was talking, like, it made me think about what he was talking about was when he was first becoming a writer, before he got published, he used to work as a hotel, like concierge, like behind the desk in a hotel. And he used to do the night shift. So he'd be mostly just standing behind the desk doing nothing. And he would have like a bunch of time for writing. And he was like, you've got, if you want to be a writer, you need to find a job that's not mentally taxing, because if you have to use, like if you're an accountant all day and you're using your brain all day, When you get home, you're not going to be able to write because your brain is
You
tired.
need to turn it
So
off
if
the
you
rest.
want to learn to, if you want to be a writer and you're not writing like as your job, find a job that you don't have to use your brain, like where you're using your body instead of your brain, because then your brain will not be tired when you get home and you want to write in your spare time. And
Yeah.
like it's a piece of advice he's given as a writer, like find a job you can do where you can kind of make up the ideas in your head as you're doing your job and
Yeah.
then write them down when you get home. So I thought that's what that was a reference to.
That just leads me to, I have this thing in my head, which is when I have a bad day as a teacher, and I call that a traffic controller day, because that's a day where I look at traffic controllers and go, I could do that job, you know. And I'm like, maybe if I want to be a writer, I should.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and that's what it made me think of. I was like, man, teaching is not one of those jobs. Teaching is one of those jobs where you get home,
No.
just like, I just want to watch TV. I don't even want to read a book right now because my brain is so, I've made so many decisions today.
Yeah.
I can't, my brain is shut down now. Like, I just need to zone out. So,
So,
And those
you
jobs,
put a lot
those
of
jobs,
sorry, Sarah, you put a lot of creativity into being a teacher too, because you like you
Yeah.
use your creativity up a bit. Yeah, sorry, Sarah.
no, absolutely, that's all good.
so one of the gems that my mum taught me when I was a teenager, I said something about menial labor, and she said, "There's no such thing as menial labor. It's
Mhm.
manual labor.
Mhm.
Nothing is demeaning. Work shouldn't
Yeah,
be."
I love that.
And I really like that. And it caught me that he used the word menial.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, maybe he's just sort of referring because people were looking down at
People
her
do say it.
scrubbing
Yeah,
decks.
yeah.
I did learn something though. I didn't know that you should scrub wooden planks across and not with the grain. And then I was like, that actually makes complete fucking sense. Oh my God, I didn't know that. Did anybody
didn't know
else
that
know
either.
that?
I
I
didn't
didn't know that. And I was like, it makes sense that it would just wet. And I was like, I've learned something new. Thank
No
you,
wonder how
Brendan.
long it
I
took
will.
to work that out. How many
I only
years
know
and
that-
years and years they were scrubbing it the other way before someone was like, you know what? Should do it the other way. Amazing. This is so much better.
I found
Yeah.
a quote. It says, that is one of the great mistakes people make, assuming that someone who does menial work does not like thinking. Physical labor is great for the mind, as it leaves all kinds of time to consider the world. Other work, like accounting or scribing, demands little of the body, but siphons energy from the mind. If you wish to become a storyteller, here is a hint. Sell your labor, but not your mind. Give me 10 hours a day scrubbing a deck, and oh, the stories I could imagine. Give me 10 hours adding sums, and all you'll have me imagining at the end is a warm bed and a thought-free evening. And I was like, I really like that. That's, yeah, and that, I really think that was, I've heard Brandon give people that advice about writing in real life. And I'm like, yeah, that was definitely a Brandon talking to the audience one.
Mm.
We'll agree. It definitely applies to parts of software engineering.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I was going to say, the traffic controllers, like those kind of jobs where, like, you can listen to like you can learn things at the same, like the ability to just, I'm doing something, and I can actually put in a podcast and learn something. You know, like that would be, even if you're not imagining things, having that that ability to then find inspiration in other ways and fill your ears. And that I've looked at traffic controllers and gone, if you don't, like, in some weird way, I've often gone, if you're not got, you know, AirPods in, you're wasting an opportunity. I've actually thought that many times, like, you're wasting an opportunity to learn things and, you know, listen to podcasts or audio books or whatnot. But yeah, maybe they're just
empirical
thinking.
evidence and like stop and roll the window down and ask them, like, excuse me, are you listening to something?
Are you using this time wisely?
No, I've got some suggestions.
Love it.
So folks, I think I need to take off. I need to stretch my legs. They're cramping up a bit. Nice to see you all
No
again.
worries.
I've gotten the next 2 books.
Ooh.
Nice.
Bye.
Bye. Who did the audiobook? I think Kirsten, you did it.
I did both.
Yeah. I have some comments about Brandon at the end. When he's delivering names, Mary Robinette Cowell, he is not. It just was like,
Oh,
Kirsten
like,
Stewart, Matt Bailey, Lisa Collins, Naomi
oh no,
Watts,
there's a reason he
Chris
doesn't read
Collins,
his own
and it just
books.
went, and all he just kept doing it up and
And-
up and up. And I was like, find some way to differentiate these names because these are important people that you are thanking. These are patrons.
He's not good at it. And there's been a few
No.
times where he's done like read a chapter from a new book
No,
at like
oh
a
God.
convention. And I've gone like, I really, really want to read this. I really want this chapter. I can't listen to you read it, Brandon. I'll wait until
Yeah.
someone's transcribed it and put it online because I just can't. I'm like,
Yeah,
Michael Kramer, I wait for Michael Kramer to do it, or I'll read it on the screen when
Yeah.
someone else is
But at
reading
least
out
he
what
knows.
said.
He knows.
Because-
Like, I
Yeah.
mean, and let's be honest, not many people are Mary Robinette Cow. She's pretty amazing. But yeah, I was just like, oh good Lord, that's yes. But it was cool to hear him talking about stuff, so that's cool. Yeah. But at the same time, I was like, oh God, these are important people, and you're just these names. So
Have we reached the end?
Has anyone else got any thoughts they want to share or questions they want to ask?
What are all those things that Hoyd's got his hand? Are they planets or are they something else?
They look
They look like planets.
or are they the
I need to
moons?
try and find the other picture of Hoyd that I saw. That he had a flute. He had his
Did you
flute.
show the picture of him in the?
You can show it because my thing doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just.
When does he get called Hoyd, by the way? I love that
Socks and
photo.
sandals.
Yeah,
He goes by several names. We don't actually.
Yeah, because I only
his actual
knew
names.
him as Wit. I didn't know him as Hoyd. So
He's Wit in the Stormlight Archive.
Oh,
yeah.
Although he does mention his name as Hoyd to one of the characters at one point. He's like, something. He says something
can you
about
hold that
Hoyd.
back up again?
Right, that's Tress in her
Yeah,
not an actual person
actually,
jacket.
yeah. She looks very Emma Watson there. And can you go to the sorceress, please?
Yes.
I don't like the artwork for the sorceress.
It's Florence Pugh. It's
I was
Florence
thinking-
fucking Pugh.
I got Rosamund Pike out of it actually.
Oh yeah, well Rosamund Pike and who's seen Saltburn?
But she's supposed to look like glowing and
Like Galadriel?
well, like she's an Elantrian. She's
Oh,
supposed
yeah,
to be
yeah.
glowing. She's meant to have like glowing skin and like.
I thought she was also supposed to be older. He described her as being the 50s or 60s, but you know,
Yeah.
like a really elegant. And so I was like, she's way too young. Anyway.
Yeah.
But
But we have been told that those images are also Hoyd's meant to have a mullet, remember, and he doesn't in that picture because they do mention that he has a mullet.
because he has no taste.
So like, there's no mullet in that picture either.
No.
But the picture's technically not canonical, but
For illustrative purposes.
but we can't get too
No, I know. I just you know, it's in the same way. Like I love that when we did Mistborn, there's that fan art. Like it's not official, but there was a fan art piece that I think we used it when we were still doing Goodreads kind of collections on stuff, and that was really good. Let's see if I can find it.
Because I'm sure I remember asking you when I was first reading Mistborn about what mist cloaks look like, and there wasn't an actual official picture. And
there's lots of official ones now.
There is now.
Did Land Down Under Hangout do Mistborn?
We did,
Yes.
I believe. I think it was one
You
of our
can, and you can
first
watch videos of us talking about them.
Yeah.
I think did we do all Mel? Did we do all
yeah.
3 books and then talk about it?
Yeah, so Mistborn was one of the in the early days we used to do a thing where we would pick a series for the year and we would do that. And Mistborn was our first series that we officially did. We did other series where we just sort of did them more casually or in other ways and stuff, but this was our first one that we did literally schedule throughout the year, and we did it that way. The videos won't be on the Land Down Under YouTube channel because at that time we didn't have that. So it's actually on another channel. So if you want them, I can probably dig them up for you and send you the links. But yeah, let me know if you want them, and I'll go.
Did you
and find
DNF those as well?
No, I finished that series. I quite enjoyed it at the time.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, and that's why I keep trying.
Did you do Skyward Starsight?
I didn't DNF'd it.
You DNF'd it, yeah. I can totally see why you would too.
Yeah, that one did
Yeah.
not work for me at all. And there was another one as well that I DNF'd as well. Oh, the rest of the Mistborn series, I DNF'd that as well.
Oh, interesting. Right. Yeah.
And I tried really hard with that one. I was talking to Kirsten and I was like, tell me spoilers, get me interested. I was trying really hard.
Yeah, I think it like, and this is a thing that people have been divided about with Sanderson. Like, if you don't get his humor, you're going to find it hard. And a lot of people are like, I don't like his humor. I quite like it. I mean, there's a character in Stormlight as well that heaps of people hate because she's got a very similar sense of humor to Hoyt as well, which is really Brandon's lame sense of humor. But like, I kind of find it. And she also has the same issue where she's like, she thinks she's way funnier than she actually is. And you can tell she thinks she's really funny, but you read the things and you just mostly groan. But I kind of find it a little endearing, whereas obviously I'm not like, not everybody does.
Which sounds delightful to me. And yet I know that like he and I are just not gelling. And so I just need to let it go. And there are sometimes, like once upon a time, yes, I thoroughly enjoyed Mistborn. But for some reason now he's no longer working for me and I just have to let that go.
I don't think there was too much humor in the first trilogy, actually.
There wasn't
Really. No, it was far too, it was very dark and serious.
It was
especially at the
very
beginning.
dark, but also adventure.
Yeah.
And I think the other reason because I think, Mel, you're one of these people, it's a heist at the end of the day. And I think, Mel, you enjoy a heist. Am I right? No, that's not you. Okay.
I enjoy a heist.
Kirsten enjoys a heist.
Yeah,
and I think
many in the
Elizabeth
group enjoy
enjoys
a heist. I enjoy a heist on occasion, but very often it doesn't work for me. I'm character driven, so if the characters get me, I can deal with a heist. But if it's purely for the heist reason, I do not enjoy Ocean's 11.
Oh no.
I liked Ocean's 8.
Yeah, I liked Ocean's 8. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
It's a heist.
Give me
because you
Kate
didn't
in
kill
those
the characters.
suits anytime.
I literally saw this picture the other day of Hoyt with a flute, and I can't find it now.
Guys, I think if it's okay, I'm going to wrap us up. We can keep like
Yeah. All good.
Okay.
All good.
So for anybody watching, thank you for watching. Next month we are just reading Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins.
Suzanne Collins.
Which is Lisa's pick, which is why she knows. And we will see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye. Bye.